welcome to That Florida Feeling. How you guys doing this week? Everybody good? I hope so. I probably broke my hand. It's a fun week for me. Although I am really glad that I am not the only permanently exhausted pigeon in the group. I'm glad that there's more of us. Also, thank you for the new suggestions for the breweries to try. That was really fun. Found a couple new ones. Thanks to everybody who interacts with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now the TikTok. Love you guys. You guys are amazing. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any episodes. If you have a second, I would really appreciate a 5-star review on Apple. Thank you so much. I have to give a really important shout out today. I have to first of all give a shout out to Amy and Natalie for reaching out and saying hi this week. But I have to give a shout out to my bestie, Mary Kay. She is actually the one that gave me the name for this podcast. And she's also leaving the land of Florida to move back home. And I wish her and Andy and Megan nothing but good luck. And I'll miss her. And I'm going to cry because I do love her. She was my first friend at Disney. But she's going to do great things up there. And she's going to miss Florida because it's going to be cold. But that's okay. She'll come back. But I just wanted to give her a shout out. All right, guys. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast. Thank you for those of you who do say hi to me. I really do love hearing from you guys. And I love your suggestions. And I just love that you guys are willing to interact. Everybody seemed to like the roasted chicken picture on the page the group for when it got too hot. So thank you guys for interacting. I love you guys very much. So today we're going to talk about a city that is really important to Florida. Why is it important, you ask? Because it's the state capital. And of course you're all like, oh, okay, she's talking about Tallahassee. I am talking about Tallahassee because Tallahassee is our state capital, and it's actually the only incorporated municipality in Leon County in Florida, and it's the 8th largest city in Florida, which begs to differ a lot of questions, but those are questions we'll answer in another podcast. The area around Tallahassee actually has a really rich past that dates back a long time before the Europeans even set foot in the area. The area was known to Native American tribes. And there's actually a really cool area around Lake Jackson, which is now known as the Lake Jackson Archaeological State Park. And it shows a large and complex series of earthwork mounds from the cultures that lived there at the time, and they were the Mississippian culture. The Spanish did eventually come into the territory, much like they did the rest of Florida, around the 17th century. And they established several missions in the Appalachia Territory, as it was known. And they did this mainly to get food and labor for support for their settlements that included some as St. Augustine and other missions in the area. Of course, they also wanted to convert the natives to Roman Catholicism and, plunder whatever goodies they had, but that's a whole other day. They did create a mission. The largest mission was Mission, oh Lord, what have I written? Sorry, guys. Mission Luis de Apalache, which was in Tallahassee. Oh, Mission de Luis de Apalache in Tallahassee, sorry. And the mission has been partially reconstructed by the state so that you can actually see some of the history in that area. I have not actually seen it, but I did look at pictures because I was like, oh, what is this? It looks really cool. It's on my it's on my list to visit very soon. And of course, the Spanish did do a lot of exploring in that area. Panfilo de Narvaez and Hernando de Soto were two of the main ones that explored the area. Of course, we've heard of De Soto. De Soto actually occupied the Appalachian town of, and I'm going to say this wrong, Anhaica? Let's go with Anhaica, which is actually present-day Tallahassee for the winter of 1538 to 1539. The town he stayed in is probably about a half a mile from the present-day Florida State Capitol building. So that's kind of cool. There's also a rumor that the De Soto encampment was believed to have their first Christmas celebration on the continental U.S. at that time. It's not historically proven, it's just a rumor, but it's a really, really cool rumor nonetheless. Now, where did Tallahassee get its name? The name Tallahassee is a Muskogean language word that basically translates into old fields or old town. And the expression probably came from the Creek people who came from the area from Georgia and Alabama in the 18th and 19th century as pressure from the European Americans who had started to take over the land in their area. They started to move south, and of course they ended up in Florida. And the Creek found that a large area that had been previously cleared that had been occupied by the Appalachian tribe. And so that's where they believe it got its name. And of course, in Tallahassee's history, there have been some good and some bad times. Tallahassee was the site of 2 skirmishes in the First Seminole War. General Andrew Jackson fought 2 separate skirmishes in and around the area. The first battle took place on November 12th, 1817. And I'm going to butcher this chief's name, but it's Chief Nemathla. Let's go with Nemathla. From the village of Foultown. He refused to relocate when Jackson told him to, and he put up a fight. And so Jackson entered the village and burned it to the ground. And then he left, because why would he not? So that was the first skirmish in the First Seminole War. And then the second time, Jackson re-entered Florida in March of 1818. He had an encounter near Tallahassee, where he encountered an Indian village, and he took more prisoners. And then he left, because, So the area's had a pretty interesting history. Of course, Tallahassee was part of the Spanish territory, and it stayed that way until September of 1821, when it became an American territory, thanks to the Adams-Onis Treaty from 1819. I don't know why it took 2 years, but it did. They finally became an American territory. And when they became American territory, the people in West Florida and East Florida needed a place to meet. They didn't want to meet in Pensacola, which was West Florida's place, and they didn't want to meet in St. Augustine, which was East Florida's place. So they wanted a halfway point. And so they sent out, both delegations picked 2 commissioners, and they sent them to find the halfway point, to pick a good spot for this new capital. And the spot they picked was an old Appalachian settlement that had been virtually deserted when Jackson had burned it to the ground in 1818. And they decided that this was the spot. And the first legislative session actually was held a couple years later in 1824. And so, of course, Tallahassee began to grow larger once it was chosen as the new site of the legislative session. 1821 to 1845 was really the time when it was just a Florida territory town, more than just a state capital. And it kind of changed in those years from a little village or trading post into a real town. Part of what helped it was Marquis de Lafayette came for a tour in 1824, right after it had been picked, and he was granted a large land grant in the area that included a portion of what is today present-day Tallahassee. He decided that he liked it so much that he was just going to stay, and he also helped to grow the town. Now, in 1845, they built a large Greek Revival masonry structure that was built as the new Capitol building. The building actually still stands today. It is directly in front of the high-rise Capitol building that was built in the 70s that is in use today. But you can see the original building, and I'll tell you a little bit about it later in this episode. Now, Tallahassee did have some industries. It was in the heart of what was called Florida's Cotton Belt, and Leon County actually led the state in cotton production at that time. Tallahassee was also the center of slave trade in Florida, because remember, Florida does have a little bit of a dark past. Tallahassee did unfortunately stand with the Confederacy during the Civil War, and it was the only state capital that was east of the Mississippi River that was never controlled by the Union forces. Fun fact, it was also the only one not burned to the ground. Sherman's march did not come this far west, or really anybody's march, but mainly Sherman's. Now, the area did see a battle during the war, and it was the Battle of Natural Bridge, which was fought on March 6th, 1865, which was basically a moot point because that was about a month before the war actually ended. Now, of course, with the end of the Civil War, there was the Reconstruction period, and this really kind of caused the area to grow. In the 1800s, 19th century, institutions began to develop what is now called the Florida, which is now FSU, Florida State University, and they really picked Tallahassee as home. And when they did that, they became a university town, and that's still kind of what they're known for to this day. The Tallahassee Female Academy was founded in 1843. The Florida Institute was founded in 1854. Both of these really did help the town to grow. 1851 also brought about change in the town when the state legislative decreed that 2 seminaries should be built on either side of the Suwannee River, creating the East Florida Seminary and the West Florida Seminary. They were very thoughtful in their naming process there. And of course, they built them on opposite sides of the river, and eventually they were transferred. The west one was transferred to the Florida Institute, and the Tallahassee Female Academy was also absorbed into the seminary, which made it coeducational. And again, all of these eventually became what is FSU. But FSU is not the only school in the area. 1887 was the year the Normal College for Colored Students, which is technically the ancestor to FAMU, or Florida A&M University, opened its doors. And the legislature actually specifically chose this location because they thought that Tallahassee would be the perfect place, or the best place, for African American school of higher education, since Florida did still have segregated schools. So the area did see some change with the development of all these schools, but they also saw a change in their industry. Unfortunately, after the war, much of Florida's industry began to move south and east, pretty much like it is today. If you've been to the Panhandle, you know that none of it is a huge boom of industry, unfortunately. And that's just kind of what happened after the war. People became more to the coast for fishing, or they went to the middle of the state for citrus. And really, with the end of slavery and the rise of free labor, it really did reduce the cotton and tobacco trade, which was the main industry in that area. Now, of course, after the war, the whole state's industry changed, like I said, to citrus, lumber, cattle, and of course, tourism. Now, citrus, lumber, and cattle are mostly grown in the center of the state, and tourism can really be all over the state, depending on what you're looking to be a tourist of. But tourism really took off in the late 19th century, late 1800s, and Tallahassee wasn't really a tourist hotspot. I honestly can't really say it's still a tourist hotspot. But something else kind of happened in Tallahassee, because the area was full of trees and plantations. A lot of the plantations that used to be owned by the slave owners were bought out as northerners as winter homes, and then they turned all those grounds around it into hunting grounds. And so they became like hunting lodges and winter homes, and there's actually a state park up there I talked about, Alfred B. McClay State Park, and it used to be a hunting ground as well. And so this is really what Tallahassee saw the change to, and I guess that's really the start of the winter homes from the north. Now, Tallahassee grew, but it didn't really grow. It still kind of remained a small southern town until World War II, since most of the population of the town lived within about a mile of the capital. So there wasn't a lot of outward growth in this town. Now, the main economic drivers to the area were, of course, the colleges, because with college students, you need food, clothing, all the things that they want to buy and spend their money on, or if they have any money. Or the people who work at the colleges, they need to buy things, so that's your industry. And also the state government, because the state government is home there. And so everybody there dealing with that needs to have places as well. And Tallahassee did have a good spot. They were actually very active in the civil rights era, with many protests happening in the city. The city did have a really big bus boycott to really help change how the buses were routed, how the seating assignments were in the buses, and to employ people, more diversity in the bus system. So that was a really cool spot in Tallahassee's history. And the city did grow. Even after there was talk that the capital should be moved further south into the state, Tallahassee has remained the capital and continues to evolve. There was actually, in the 1970s, a big push to leave Tallahassee as the state capital, and that's where we get that high-rise building from that was built to revamp the state capital. That was really the state's commitment to be like, no, this is our capital, and we're going to keep it here. But Tallahassee really has someone else to say put it on the map. And you've probably heard of him, Bobby Bowden. Bobby Bowden became the head of I'm sorry, I'm laughing because Matthew's over here booing them. Bobby Bowden came to Florida State University in 1976, and the town was immediately dominated by college football as the team became a true winning team. And he coached there for 34 years. Fun fact, he only had one losing season, and that was his first season in 1976. But thanks to Bobby Bowden and FSU, people now know the Noles, and they were kind of a powerhouse, or a really good team for a little while. So Tallahassee slightly has Bobby Bowden to thank for that. Tallahassee is not unscathed when it comes to Florida's wonderful weather. They have survived a couple hurricanes, mainly 2 in the last 10 years. Hermine basically directly hit Tallahassee, causing damage and power outages to the town. And Tallahassee also saw some damage and power loss from Michael that basically devastated the Panhandle in 2018. It had hit on Mexico Beach, but the outer bands wreaked havoc in Tallahassee as well. People losing power for almost a month because the cleanup was it was bad in that area. Basically, Michael wiped certain places off the map, and while Tallahassee was spared a direct, horrible blow, it did get, like I said, the outer bands, and it did feel the effects of this hurricane. Now, the cool thing about Tallahassee is because it lives in the Panhandle, it does suffer from a different climate than the rest of Florida. And I say suffer because if you're a Floridian, you may not like the cold. And Tallahassee does experience all 4 seasons, like most of the Panhandle. They do tend to have warmer winters, but they still have the ability to get winter weather. Snow and ice is rare, but it does happen. In fact, I know it happened in 2014 and again in 2018. The area does also get flurries about every 3 to 4 years, and snowfall can actually happen. The area's heaviest snowfall ever recorded was 2.8 inches on February 13th in 1958. So, fun fact, snow does happen in Florida. Snow has actually happened all the way down to Tampa. Flurries, but it still happened. Now, I told you all that Tallahassee was virtually a college town for basically most of the state. And, it started that way and it still continues to go to this day. The city is home to Florida A&M University, or FAMU. I told you the college was founded in 1887, and it was a public, historically black university with a land-grant university as part of the state university system for Florida. And its main campus is huge. It actually takes over 422 acres, and it stands on the highest geographical hill in Tallahassee. It does offer everything from undergrad to doctorate programs. So that's one really, really interesting college that calls Tallahassee home. Another one is Tallahassee Community College. And the community college is partnered with FSU and FAMU. Wow, I don't know why. Sorry. Let's go with the Brocand is messing me up here. So FSU and FAMU, it partners with them to offer a program that helps with guaranteed admissions into the school for people who graduate the community college with an associate in the arts. So that's kind of cool to help you further your education. And of course, FSU also calls Tallahassee home. The school was founded in 1851 as a bunch of different institutions, and it is the oldest continuous site for higher education in Florida, even though it has been through quite a few name changes in its time. It is made up of 16 separate colleges that offer over 360 different programs. FSU is home to Florida's only national laboratory, the National High Magnetic Field Laboratory. It is also the birthplace of Taxol, which is an anti-cancer drug. FSU also operates the John and Mabel Ringling Museum of Art, which is the state art museum in Florida, and it's also one of the largest museum university complexes in the nation. FSU is actually a really good school. It was tied for 19th best public university in the U.S. and 55th overall in the world. That's actually pretty cool. The school is, of course, home to the Seminoles, which compete in the NCAA Division I. But that's not only the schools that call Tallahassee home. There are a couple other satellite people, but Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University does call Tallahassee its full home. The satellite campuses for Flagler College, Kaiser University, St. Leo University, and Barry University School of Adult and Continuing Education also call Tallahassee home, which means that the population in Tallahassee can fluctuate. it can fluctuate greatly, sometimes within a day, especially when the students leave for semesters. So if you go one time and Tallahassee is really full and you're like, what is going on? School may be in session. If you go another time and the streets seem a little quieter, school might not be in session. So you might want to pick and choose your times to go. Now, the town is full of fun things to do and amazing places to go. They do have a really cool area called the Railroad Square Art Park, which is an arts, culture, and entertainment district. The area is actually filled with metal sculptures and stores selling artwork and collectibles. The area is known for the small, locally owned shops and working artist studios. They're pretty well known for their alternative art. Now, what's cool about that is a lot of the studios, I guess, aren't open completely like all the time for visitors, but the first Friday of every month, all the galleries open to the public where you can see the sculptures, you can buy the artwork, you can browse and see new things. So that's kind of cool. It's definitely a fan to the creative side people. And of course, the city is known for its many museums. The Museum of Fine Arts, the Tallahassee Museum, the Goodwood Museum and Gardens, Museum of Florida History, Mission San Luis de Apalache. God, I've renamed that mission like 3 times in this. I guess the real name is Mission San Luis de Apalache. I don't know what I was calling it earlier. Sorry, guys. The Tallahassee Auto Museum, the Old Capitol Museum, which is actually the Old Capitol building, which I was going to tell you about. So the Old Capitol Museum, which is the Old Capitol building, stands in front of the high-rise building, and it actually shows the history of Florida's legislation through the years. And it's really cool that not only they preserved that building, but they've also turned it into a museum for future use and for furthering the education of Florida's past. There's also the Knott House Museum and the Grove, which are all fun places to visit in town. And of course, with all this fun stuff and museums, they do have, again, some amazing festivals, because all towns in Florida have amazing festivals. But this city has a really cool one. It's called the Downtown Get Down, which, by the way, I'm from Tennessee, so that just feels so redneck to me. But anyways, the Downtown Get Down, which is basically known as the FSU Pep Rally, it includes concerts, food stands, dancing, entertainers, things for the kids, and other fun types that take place every year in the fall. Basically, it's just to rally everybody around the Knolls. And then the city's also home to a really cool festival. I thought this was really cool. They have a Greek food festival that's held every October. And it's put on by the Holy Mother of God Greek Orthodox Church. And it's really an outreach program for the church to get into the community. But it allows the Greek people in the area to showcase their foods, their cultures. It lets people try new things. And it really helps them to show the people, like, this is where we're from and we're happy to be here today. They have Greek music, Greek food, culture exhibitions, and it really just does open up the door so people can understand the Greek culture. And of course, the town itself has fun things to do around the outside of the town. Nearby is the Alfred B. McClay Garden State Park, which I told you about a second ago. It's also in one of my state park episodes, so if you want to hear more about it, check out those. You can explore the state capitol building. You can see the Florida Supreme Court. You can take a tour of the Lake Jackson Mound Archaeological State Park, which I mentioned at the beginning, so that you can get an idea of the Mississippian culture that helped to found the area. The downtown also has some really cool historic buildings, like the First Presbyterian Church or Florida's Governor Mansion. There's also a couple of cool parks around the area and other little towns nearby. Now, the town is very family-friendly and full of knowledge and kind of part old Florida. You can find some amazing local coffee shops like Lucky Goat Coffee, Argonaut Coffee, or Black Dog Coffee. The town is also full of fun restaurants like Barb's Gourmet Brittles, Savor, or Midtown Caboose, which is kind of a throwback to the railroad. The town is also home to some really cool breweries such as Ology Brewery, Proof Brewing Company, and Deep Brewing Company. Now, shout out to Ology. They actually... somebody had suggested them on the brewery this week, the question, and they got back to me, and they were really cool about it. You know, they seem like a really good local brewery that I can't wait to have more stuff on from them. I actually just got turned on to them by a coworker, so I can't wait to try more of their stuff. So the town really does have something for everyone. If you're looking for family fun, you can check out the museums or the gardens. If you're an artist, definitely go check out the art galleries and the district, especially on the first Friday of the month. If you're into craft beer, spend a night checking out some of the local breweries. If you're a foodie, coffee shops, restaurants, that's your thing. I like the area. I like the fact that you get all 4 seasons as opposed to most of Florida where you're stuck in the hot and humid Satan's armpit sometimes. And yes, I affectionately call it that. The area isn't far from the beaches in the Panhandle, and there are some of the most beautiful beaches in that area. So it's a great place to explore nature as well. It's a great place for a day trip or a weekend getaway. It's absolutely a town full of knowledge, but it's also home to Florida Man. Well, really anywhere in Florida, I guess, is home to Florida Man. Today's Florida Man, though, comes to us from Palm Beach Gardens. Today's Florida Man is, shall we say, an asshole. He is just, I don't like this Florida Man. He is disgusting. He was arrested for posing as a teenager to try and get pictures of teenage girls. I looked up this Florida Man, and there is no way he would ever pass as a teenager. In fact, I think when he was a teenager, he probably still looked 40. But I guess that's the danger of social media. You never really know who you're talking about. Alright guys, I hope that you enjoyed this episode about Tallahassee. I apologize for it being a day late. This week has just been very interesting. I'm not sure about next week's episode. I have a lot going on. A couple different events, so you'll probably see a couple different live streams. You will get an episode next week. Just don't be surprised if it's a replay. So, I hope you found somewhere new. I hope that you have found something fun in this episode. Again, Mary Kay, I will miss you and your family greatly. I wish nothing but the best for you guys. Thank you again to all of those who reached out this week and talked to me. I love hearing from you guys. It really makes my day when I get messages saying, hi, I love that you have a podcast, or I learned something new from your podcast, or I can't wait to hear more about like the real side of Florida. I really appreciate that you guys reach out to me. It really does make my week. Thank you so much. Again, if you have a second, 5-star reviews are appreciated. I hope that everybody has a great week. I hope that you all stay hydrated. It is hot outside. Please be nice to one another. There are enough idiots out there. Let's not make ourselves into one of them. And as always, guys, that's your daily dose of sunshine.